All right, this week we're going to take a look at career expectations and realities for the hospitality industry. So, we're going to discuss different careers in the hospitality industry, identify any characteristics necessary to be efficient and effective in the hospitality industry, develop personal management skills necessary to advance your career in the hospitality. Later, we'll also take a look at the management styles, the kind of core management styles and situational leadership. We'll demonstrate resume writing strategies to prepare for interviews, demonstrate interviewing skills, and career management strategies. Of course, this is just a broad level overview like much of this course, but there will be more in-depth looks at things like resume writing in your professionalism course, and there'll be more in-depth management skills also in professionalism or other courses as well. For now, we're just trying to give you a brief overview in this HT 101 course. Careers in hospitality. They are primarily in three different forms. Either there's a management position, and this of course includes like executive suite all the way up to the top, and there are many types of management positions from supervisory roles, which oversee employees, hourly employees, and they control the direction of those employees, or there are regional management opportunities where you're seeing more than one or multi-unit, sometimes it's called management or regional management, and then also, of course, sort of ownership management positions in which you are more at the executive level. Then there's the kind of distinction of the hourly and supervisory positions between front of house and back of house, depending on which part of the industry you're working in. If it's a hotel or restaurant, the name still kind of applies. So front of house are generally those that are customer facing. They make the direct contact with guests. And examples of this may be a GM at one particular unit, whereas the manager at or a regional manager may not be considered a front of house necessarily because they're not directly with the consumer on a day-to-day basis. Director of sales is another good example. When people are calling in for reservations or other sales related, if they're setting up a catering gig or something, those people are also going to be front of house. Casino manager, public relations, of course, is a great example where it's getting to the external community and providing the spin on news for your organization. Of course, they're facing the public. Back of house employees are those that have indirect contact with guests but have an impact on the guest satisfaction. So you might see these more as like the support offices. So that includes things like housekeeping as an example, although there you might have some direct contact with guests, but it's not a primary portion of their job. You also have back office assistants, executive chefs, a lot of like the people who focus on your finances, like comptrollers, computer programmers, so information technology people, other support staff, include your human resources department, and others who may not directly affect your guests, but affects your staff or others who then, of course, affect your guests as well and their experience based off of the employee's performance. Necessary characteristics to work in the hospitality industry? Well, first of all, qualities. We like to say that we're going to hire the smile and train the person. So you have to be able to have a jovial attitude and an ability to be flexible and improv on the fly when you're dealing with a very improvisational industry. There was a study out of a Chinese university that stated that actually working in the restaurant industry is more taxing on the brain than is a neurosurgeon's job. And the reason for that, they said, was because there is so many more variables that are improvisational and not guaranteed or not fixed when you work in the restaurant industry as a waiter than there is when you're a neurosurgeon, because you've been practicing this one task your entire life and you're able to execute that task. Whereas for a waiter or waitress in a restaurant, if they're dealing with an onslaught of improvisational things, you have a customer who you never know what their emotions are going to be or what they're wanting, and of course we need to kind of adhere to their wants and needs. You have also suppliers. Some food may not come in. You also have weather as an example as well too. There are many different aspects which affect your ability to succeed in hospitality that are external factors. And there's the major difference in terms of the hospitality industry. So also qualities, some examples are commitment to the industry, a passion to serve others. We'll talk about Danny Meyer at length in this course and his idea of hiring those people who derive pleasure from the act of giving pleasure. So ultimately, that's what you are doing in this industry, is giving pleasure to others by resting or restoring them in a restaurant, or allowing them to have their restoration in a hotel room as well. So you have to be able to have the passion to serve others. Then another core quality is competencies. So this is your actual, the tasks or duties to fulfill the job requirement. So for instance, food safety for a kitchen staff or manager, generally there's a certification like the ServSafe certification. And as you complete the program here at UW Stout, you will likely complete the ServSafe certification as well. It's one small licensure that is necessary for you to handle food, especially as a manager in a restaurant. So it's important to keep that in mind as well too, and look at what are some of the certifications or licenses that are necessary for your particular job or management position in the industry. Skills, these are the basic skills needed to succeed in the position. A lot of these are learned on the job, but can also be learned, of course, through education. This is your problem-solving ability, your general knowledge of technology, and excellent verbal and nonverbal communication skills. So we talked previously about hard skills and soft skills. These are the both items that you're going to need. The hard skills, of course, are more that you're going to be able to learn through education, and those soft skills are those that you're likely more so to learn on the job as you continue to develop yourself and your management style. Another key aspect is self-management. So self-management is knowing what you need to do, how you need to do it, when you need to do it, why you need to do it, and doing it efficiently and effectively. Later we'll talk about situational leadership, and self-management plays a lot into the idea of situational leadership and the ability to know just these things: what, how, when, and why. So you also want to keep a broader aspect, not just on a day-to-day basis of your self-management, but also yourself and your development throughout your career. You always want to keep an idea of what is your personal vision with goals and objectives to complete. Do you want to be the GM in 5 years? Do you want to be a regional manager in 10 years? What is your goal? And keeping in mind and taking a time every week to reflect on what is it that I want, not just what my company wants from me, but what is it that I want and what can I give back to my company. It's important to keep that vision. Always try and keep a journal or goals at least written down so that you can hold yourself accountable to those goals as well. Another key piece of self-management is seeking mentors. Individuals with these are individuals with significant experience to help guide you throughout your career. It might be a professor of yours that you really liked. It might be someone out in the industry. Maybe you had a great meal somewhere and you loved the whole ambiance of the restaurant or the hotel and everything. And so you talk to that GM and say, hey, I like what you're doing here. Is there a way that I can just sit down and have a coffee with you? Never underestimate how important those contacts can be, that knowing people can be just as important as what you know in general. And so making those connections early in your career are very important so that you can rely on them in the future. Even if they're not someone that you necessarily work with on a day-to-day basis, they can also be someone then that you can vent to and talk about your war stories of working in the hospitality industry, so that they can give you a second opinion if you're doing the right thing as you move along. And especially if you're working in the corporate entity, that's very important because you need to be able to have someone to vent those frustrations to, and also to talk about those successes with, so you can help keep you motivated to continue to want to push further and push towards your goals and objectives. So later on, we'll likely have an activity where we're going to have you, think about that. Think about who can be your mentor in the industry as you get started, and think about who is your guru. And that's what we're going to talk about now, is finding your guru. So who is that person who inspires you, who shares an interest with you, or just thinks the way that you do? Again, so we want you to think about those people early in life, and don't think that there's someone out of reach, right? So Danny Meyer is one of my inspirations and one of my gurus, and I've continued to press and press and press and meet a lot of great people along the way who think just like he does. Gabe Stallman is a great example out of New York. He's originally from Wisconsin, has opened 5 restaurants in New York with his Little Wisco group among them. You never know who you're going to be able to meet if you continue to pursue and try and find the guru that you want. So no dream is too high. Continue to think bigger and bigger. And whenever you find that guru, find a talk that they're having, find a restaurant that they're working at, and just go there. And try and make those contacts. Even if you just meet some of the people that work for that person, eventually you might be able to indeed meet that person. So that's how I've been able to meet a lot of the great people in the industry who've given me a lot of great advice over the years as well. Next, we're going to talk about the 3 pillars of career success, and those include developing networking skills, personal excellence, and time management. These are the 3 most important pillars that are part of success in your career. So developing networking skills, we talked about just a moment ago. It's not what you know, but who you know. And this is pivotal to your success in the career. So never undervalue the opportunity to go to an event. If you're into food and beverage, find your local the closest food and beverage event. So maybe if you're down in Florida, there's the SoFab events. There's also the National Restaurant Association show in Chicago. If you're in the Upper Midwest, great opportunities. You can often find money from your school or from other organizations. Don't deter yourself just because of the cost. If it's $100, $200, that $100 or $200 could turn into thousands of dollars if it means that you've met someone who has put you on a better path for your career. So I went to the National Restaurant Association show when I was an undergrad because I was big into restaurants. And I would highly encourage going there. I still go back nearly every year to continue to network and continue to meet people. And you realize that when you go to events like this, the community of hospitality, or in that case restaurants, continues to get smaller and smaller because you're meeting more and more people and you're seeing them again and again at these events and learning from them in the process. Personal excellence. We talked about setting your own goals and making sure to follow up on those. Well, seeking excellence in all you do is also a very important task, but we must also realize that perfection is not attainable, especially when you're working in that improvisational environment of the hospitality industry where things move very quickly. You have to be okay with the fact that things might not work out 100% perfectly. Okay, so type A personalities can be a little tough in the hospitality industry. You have to be able to have some flexibility and have some humor along the way when things don't work out. Time management. It's important to prioritize your tasks. So this is kind of where those type-A skills do come in handy, however, is to effectively manage your time and always be on time, right? Especially when we're looking at our customers. Now we're going to turn to some of the more professionalism skills. Again, this is just a brief overview. There's going to be more in-depth look at this in your professionalism course. So preparing for a job search, your resume is a marketing tool that says a lot about you before you are called in for an interview. So, a lot of times the paper, how you've written, the quality of paper, whether or not there's any spelling mistakes, whether it's formatted correctly, is all going to play into your ability to be able to present yourself and also to present your accomplishments in a concise manner, but in a way that gets the point across of your professionalism and your attainment so far. So key items to include on your resume, of course, are going to be your name, contact information, including phone, email address especially, and your address. Professional objectives, make a clear statement. What is it that you are looking to do in the industry? Your college and education experience, your work experience, if you have any, and any big accomplishments that you've had either in your high school career or in your professional life as well. And then finally, any special skills. So this is an area where you might include your ServSafe certification or any other kind of certifications that are relevant to your industry. Nowadays, employers are also looking for some form of personhood in your resume. What speaks out and what looks different. So if you have a particular hobby or interest, it's also important to put it on there. Don't undervalue that as well, right? So for instance, I like to create espresso mugs from ceramics. Now, that might not seem like so important of a thing to put on a resume, but it would also lend to a great story when you're in an interview. So an employer might see that on your resume and say, well, it looks like you like to make espresso mugs. Well, why do you like to do that? Well, it goes back to the idea that I enjoy coffee, and I began to enjoy coffee so much, just like a lot of people go from farm to table and try and understand where their food comes from. I also like to, appreciate espresso, and so much so that I want to be able to make the own mug that I drink my coffee out of. So things like that show then a sense of detail, a sense of passion, and a sense of kind of drive towards the enjoyment of a particular item, which can be very transferable to your work in the hospitality industry. So preparing for a job search. Before the interview, it's important to research the company that you're going to work for. So check out their website, their missions, their values, their employee benefits, the culture, so you can come prepared with questions. You also might want to reach out to someone who's already working for that company and see, do they enjoy it? What are the things that they don't like about working there? And what are the things that the company could use better? And try and use those things in an interview to be able to say, look, I have proven experience, or I have an ability to do this, which is missing from your company as well. The more prepared you are, the more likely you are to get that job. Prepare your elevator pitch. So this is very important. If we were taking this class in person, I'd literally put you on an elevator and ask you to make your pitch. What is your passion? What drives you in the hospitality industry? And so we'll talk a little bit about that in this course as well too. We're going to ask you that question: why hospitality? What drew you here, and what is going to what do you intend to do with this degree ultimately? And we want you to get to think about that early so you can continue to revise that statement as you move along. But that statement should be about 2 to 3 minutes. You should be able to shoot a video, 2 to 3 minutes, and be able to tell me exactly what it is that you want to do in the hospitality industry. And it's okay. You may not know exactly what that is now, and you might struggle and you might fumble through it the first time you do it. But as you continue to refine that statement, you're going to be able to easily say that to a potential employer and to someone you might meet along the way, because maybe you will indeed be in an elevator of a hotel that you really like, and you might meet the CEO of Marriott, and he might ask you, oh, well, why are you in the hospitality industry? And you need to be prepared at any moment. And of course, dress for success. Now, you'll get into more detail of what that means in your professionalism course, but I will just make a caveat that there are a lot of employers now who are kind of resistant to the idea of the standard suit and tie. So know your company and know whether they adhere to that classic suit and tie element or pantsuit or skirt, or whether they focus on kind of the new age idea that the suit and tie is not necessary, especially not in some forms of hospitality operations. During the interview then, it's very important to arrive before your interview and to not be late, of course. During the interview, you also want to make sure to keep a jovial attitude, so smile, be enthusiastic, and it's okay if you fumble through some things, but always keep a sense of professionalism and a demeanor of proper candor, so that you are making sure that you're not providing a comedy routine, but at the end are giving a true expression of what you would be like in front of your guest as well if you did make a mistake. And stay on brand. So just like you will develop the elevator pitch, it's important to create a story when you're in an interview. So think of a phrase that really outlines who you are, and then use that time and again in your interview. It's kind of a psychological cue. So if someone hears, that you're a strong and efficient performer, and if they hear that 5 times throughout an interview, they're going to remember that, and they're going to make it synonymous with who you are. Additionally, if you have the opportunity to look at the brand of the restaurant or hotel and find something that they stand up for, fresh quality, you might want to also use that terminology as well in your interview. So you might want to talk about your like for fresh and quality food throughout the interview if you're working for or interviewing for a company that will work with fresh and quality food as well. After the interview, it's always important to say thank you. So this can be formal or informal, depending on the nature of the organization that you're working for and how quickly and fast the turnaround is for the interview. So if it is a quick turnaround to an answer, it might not be sufficient to send a letter in the mail, but it may be more sufficient to send an email thank you or LinkedIn thank you, however you connected with that person as well. Also follow up with those other people who might have helped you get that interview along the way, because they're going to want to know whether or not you interviewed and how it's going, and they might even be able to put in a good word for you too. So if you met someone through LinkedIn or otherwise that is connected with an organization and that's how you landed the interview, you follow up with them after the interview and say it went really well or it didn't go very well, and they're going to want to know the honest opinion of that. And what they may be able to do again is to be able to help you, and they might be able to talk to that person who interviewed you and say, hey, look, I know they might not have had a good interview, but I vouch for them and I think they're a great asset for our company as well. So talking about the industry in general, there are a number of myths that sometimes just aren't the reality in our industry, and we want to kind of dispel a few of those now. So a lot of people say that education is not needed and that you learn a lot in your job. Well, it's very helpful in advancement in the career. So if you want to have a management career, or if you want to move on to the executive suite, you're likely going to want to have at least an undergraduate level, if not a Master of Business Administration, an MBA, or something of that nature as well. Hospitality is only hotels? Well, no. The prefix to our industry, hospice, which where we get hospitality from, means to care for the sick and weary. So that includes not just hotels, resorts, and tourism, but also the restaurants, events, casinos, attractions, cruises, many, many things. And then, of course, the number of industries that go beyond that. So like hospitality law is also another area that's not directly in a hotel. Another myth is that many jobs are part-time. There are plenty of full-time jobs in the industry that can be found also while you're in school. Another myth, tourism is seasonal. Well, that's dependent upon geography, and there's always a way to find tourism even in cold climates. As we know in the upper Midwest, there is opportunities to have like winter tourism or other things. So there is always tourism, and if you are just someone who likes warm tourism, well, you can also kind of move from location to location to work as well, and ensure that you have, a job in a warm environment year-round. All hourly jobs are a dead-end minimum wage. That's another myth, but rather there are a number of people who promote from within. So those people who might be getting an hourly job, even if they're getting it just out of school, may be promoted up to the manager or regional manager position as well. And that's something we honor in our industry, is the hard work that is attained from working in the industry as well as the education. All hospitality is face-to-face is another myth. There are many back-of-house jobs. We mentioned the legal aspects, so law, human resources, technology. All those things still help and assist our hospitality industry, but also are not customer facing. So keep that in mind as well too, if you may be a little more of the introverted type. There's definitely a place for you in the hospitality industry. So in summary, we've explored possible careers within the hospitality field in general. We discussed both front of house and back of house jobs, certifications and training, which could be key for management positions, including a college degree, which is recommended for advancement and to increase your salary. There are also many myths about the hospitality industry, and we dispelled quite a few of those, and talked through the interviewing process and what you must go through before, during, and after that interview to be successful as well.